Have you ever wondered how many important stories get forgotten over time? Among the great heroes of the Bible, Abraham, Moses, David, there are names that remain in the background, their significance often overlooked, yet their impact echoes to this very day. Ishmael is one such name. He was Abraham's firstborn, the result of a decision that seemed to solve a human problem but brought with it conflicts, blessings, and the foundation of an entire nation. Why, then, has his story been so ignored? Could it be that we tend to focus only on what appears central, and overlook what God has also used to fulfill his plans? Ishmael wasn't merely a forgotten son. He stands as a living example of how God sees beyond circumstances and extends grace, even when human paths deviate. Did you know that while Isaac is remembered as the child of promise, Ishmael was extraordinarily blessed and became the patriarch of a people who would shape history? The truth is, Ishmael wasn't an error or a deviation, but part of a grander plan that perhaps you haven't yet explored. This story carries profound truths that remain relevant to our lives today. It speaks of faith, identity, resilience, and purpose. Most importantly, it reveals God's character, a God who doesn't abandon, who cares even for those on the margins, and who turns deserts into places of blessing. If you've ever felt forgotten, invisible, or out of place, Ishmael's story may resonate deeply with you. But prepare yourself, this narrative is far from linear or comfortable. It's filled with tension, family conflict, moments of anguish, and unexpected twists. And yet, it is in these very details that the most valuable lessons are found. Do you want to understand how the decisions of one family shaped entire nations? Do you want to discover how God works through our imperfections to turn what seems lost into something extraordinary? Then stay with us until the end. Ishmael's legacy is a powerful reminder that, in God's plan, no one is forgotten. From the very beginning, Ishmael's story has served as a reminder of the complexities of faith and human relationships. He wasn't just Abraham's firstborn, but a living symbol of the tension between divine promises and human solutions. When Sarah, struggling with the pain of infertility, suggested that Abraham have a child with Hagar, her servant, she didn't foresee the implications of that decision. Ishmael was born as a response to human anguish, but also as part of a greater plan by God, showing that even our imperfect paths can be used to fulfill divine purposes. Imagine Hagar, an Egyptian woman of humble position, suddenly thrust into a monumental story. By giving birth to Abraham's firstborn, she was drawn into a spiritual and familial drama. Her role illustrates how God often chooses the marginalized to play significant parts in his plans. Think about it. How often do we feel like Hagar, on the margins of something greater? Yet God sees, hears, and uses each of us, regardless of our position or circumstances. The Bible describes Ishmael as a boy who grew up in the desert, far from the comfort of Abraham's household. He was shaped by adversity, learning resilience in the face of challenges. This experience reflects a valuable lesson for us all. The deserts of life are not just places of suffering, but also of growth. When we face challenges, we can ask ourselves, what is God trying to teach or shape in me through this? Even though Ishmael was born under circumstances that might seem like a deviation from the original plan, he bore the mark of being part of the promise. God had promised Abraham that he would make him the father of a great nation, and Ishmael, as the firstborn, wasn't excluded from that blessing. This promise teaches us that God doesn't abandon his own, even when our choices seem to stray from the ideal. It's a message of hope that invites us to trust in his promises regardless of the circumstances. The name Ishmael, meaning God hears, is deeply significant. He was born in a context of crying out and divine response. Just as God heard Hagar's suffering in the desert, he also hears our cries today. It's a powerful reminder that our prayers, even in the darkest moments, never go unnoticed by God. Have you ever tried writing your prayers in a journal? Sometimes, looking back and seeing how God has answered can renew our faith. However, Ishmael's birth brought a complex dynamic to Abraham's family. He was the child of a human solution, while Isaac would be the child of the divine promise. This tension reflects the inner battle we all face, trusting our own means or waiting for God's timing. Often, we make hasty decisions to resolve problems, unaware that we may be missing the chance to see God act miraculously. Do we have the courage to wait? This story, while filled with conflicts and twists, doesn't end here. Despite his circumstances, Ishmael was blessed and became part of something greater. But what happened next? The arrival of Isaac and the growing tension within Abraham's family open new chapters in this rich narrative, full of lessons for us all. Ishmael's birth brought joy to Hagar, but also deep conflicts within Abraham's family. Sarah, who initially supported the idea, began to feel the emotional weight of seeing Hagar and Ishmael occupy a space she believed was rightfully hers. Imagine the charged atmosphere, a divine promise of a legitimate son, but a firstborn already present before the promised time. This familial tension reminds us how our choices can create conflicts that resonate far beyond the present moment. When Isaac was finally born, the rivalry between Sarah and Hagar reached its peak, resulting in the expulsion of Hagar and Ishmael into the desert. This separation is one of the most emotional and difficult scenes in the Bible. Can you imagine Hagar's anguish, wandering with her son, uncertain if they would survive? Yet, it is here that we see God's redemptive character. In their most desperate moment, God appears, hears Ishmael's cry, and assures Hagar that he will become a great nation. This episode serves as a powerful reminder that God does not abandon those in suffering. Even though Ishmael was cast out, he was not forgotten by God. He received a promise: he would be the father of a great nation. This blessing teaches us that God's plan is not confined to the official lineage. Ishmael, though outside the spotlight, was an integral part of fulfilling God's plan. Similarly, in our lives, God often works behind the scenes, blessing areas we think have been neglected. Sometimes, it is in the moments when we feel left out that God plants the seeds of something extraordinary. The conflict between Sarah and Hagar symbolizes something deeper: the struggle between what is human and what is divine. Sarah represented the fulfillment of God's promise, while Hagar symbolized a human solution to a complex problem. How often do we try to resolve our dilemmas on our own, when God already has a perfect plan in motion? This story challenges us to trust God more, even when the solution seems delayed. Hagar and Ishmael wandered the desert, but God provided water and sustenance for them. This scene is a clear metaphor for how God is our provider in the toughest times. When everything seems dry, He is the source that never fails. Think about it. In what areas of your life do you need to trust God to provide? Perhaps this is a moment to stop, breathe, and remember that the same God who cared for Hagar is caring for you. The conflicts surrounding Ishmael also highlight the complexity of human relationships. They show us that even in families blessed by God, challenges and disputes can arise. This reminds us that perfection isn't the goal. The goal is to learn and grow. Are we willing to face our conflicts with humility and seek divine guidance, even when it seems easier to give up? And so, Ishmael's journey continues, leading us to explore how his lineage and legacy shaped history in surprising ways. From a beginning marked by conflict, he became the foundation of a divine promise that echoed through generations. Ishmael is not just an important figure in the biblical context. He is central to the history of an entire region and many peoples. Identified as the ancestor of the Arabs, his lineage had a significant impact that goes far beyond the pages of the Bible. Imagine how this promise, made by God in the desert, was fulfilled. A boy rejected by society became the patriarch of a great nation. This reminds us that God sees beyond the present and works with purposes far beyond our expectations. The descendants of Ishmael became an example of resilience. Just as he survived the desert, his descendants thrived in a region defined by natural challenges. Life in the desert, with its ups and downs, symbolizes the constant struggle for survival and the strength that arises amidst adversity. This story inspires us to persevere, even when conditions seem unfavorable. After all, if Ishmael and his descendants found ways to prosper, we too can find strength to overcome our personal deserts. The historical role of Arab peoples, linked to Ishmael, is undeniable. From ancient trade routes to cultural and scientific developments that influence the world, Their contribution is an extension of the divine promise made to Hagar and Ishmael. It's fascinating to think that this story, which began in a remote corner of the desert, echoed through entire cultures and civilizations. This teaches us that no humble origin can limit the impact of someone under God's care and promise. Ishmael also symbolizes God's mercy, which extends to all people regardless of their origins. His story shows that even when human paths seem to lead to abandonment, God is always present. It is a reminder that His promises are not restricted to one specific group but have universal reach. Think about it. How can we today be instruments of this mercy, promoting reconciliation and understanding among different cultures and people? Ishmael's presence in Scripture also challenges us to view history with new eyes. Often, we focus on central figures like Abraham and Isaac, but it's in the secondary characters that we find profound lessons. Ishmael reminds us that God works in all stories, even those that seem to be on the sidelines. Perhaps this is an invitation to re-evaluate how we see the people around us, valuing even those who seem to be off-stage. Moreover, Ishmael's legacy makes us reflect on how our actions reverberate over time. Abraham and Sarah's decision to have a child with Hagar changed not only their lives but also the history of the world. This challenges us to think, what decisions are we making today that could impact future generations? Perhaps it's time to seek God's guidance in every step, trusting that He can turn even our mistakes into something meaningful. With this, Ishmael's role in history prepares us to explore the lessons his journey brings to our lives. He is not just a historical figure but a symbol of how God works through the unexpected, teaching us to trust in His greater plan. The story of Ishmael, as recorded in the Bible, offers profound lessons about faith, human choices, and the unpredictable paths of God. From his birth, he represents humanity's attempt to anticipate or bypass the divine plan. When Sarah suggested that Abraham have a child with Hagar, solving the problem of infertility seemed logical, but it was far from God's ideal. This teaches us that no matter how reasonable our solutions seem, trusting in God's timing and promises will always be the wisest choice. One of the greatest contrasts in Ishmael's story is the difference between what is planned by God and what results from human initiative. While Isaac was the child of promise, Ishmael was born from a solution devised by Sarah and Abraham. Yet, God did not abandon him. This lesson is powerful. Even when we act hastily, God is merciful and able to redeem our choices. He transforms our mistakes into opportunities to draw closer to Him and learn to rely more on His wisdom. Ishmael also teaches us about acceptance and identity. Imagine growing up knowing you weren't the child of promise, yet still bearing a divine blessing. He reminds us that regardless of our origin or the circumstances around us, God has a unique plan for each of us. To reflect, are you recognizing your value before God, or are you stuck in comparisons and human expectations? Ishmael's story challenges us to accept our place in God's plan and live it with purpose. Another pivotal moment is how God directly intervenes in Hagar and Ishmael's lives in the desert. When everything seemed lost, He sent an angel to comfort them and assure them of His care. This act demonstrates God's character. He sees, hears, and responds, even when we feel invisible or abandoned. Perhaps now is the time to remember that God hears your cries and is ready to act, even in the darkest moments. Ishmael's journey also highlights the importance of trusting God during life's deserts. He grew up in an arid, challenging environment but was shaped by these circumstances to become the patriarch of a great nation. Like him, we face periods of difficulty that seem endless but prepare us for something greater. Think about this. Instead of avoiding challenges, what can you learn from them? God often uses our deserts to shape our character and strengthen our faith. The narrative of Ishmael invites us to reflect on reconciliation. Although his story is filled with conflicts, especially with Isaac, it points to the possibility of healing and restoration. The Bible suggests that Ishmael and Isaac reconciled when they buried their father, Abraham, together. This teaches us that even amid family tensions, there is room for forgiveness and reconnection. Perhaps it's time to seek this type of reconciliation in your own life, trusting that God can restore what seems lost. Finally, Ishmael's story delivers a clear message. God works in unexpected ways, using even situations that seem outside the plan to fulfill His purposes. It invites us to look at our lives with renewed faith, recognizing that even when we don't understand, God is at work. And with that, we are led to reflect on how these lessons connect to the greater plan God has for all humanity. So, what did Ishmael's story spark in you? Perhaps it reminded you that just as God heard Hagar's cries in the desert, He also hears you in your most difficult moments. Ishmael's journey challenges us to look inward and ask, are we trusting in God's promises and timing, or are we rushing to create our own solutions? Are we recognizing the value of those around us, even those who seem to be on the sidelines? These questions might feel uncomfortable, but they are essential for growth. The greatest takeaway here is clear: God does not abandon anyone. Even when we feel marginalized or forgotten, He is providing, sustaining, and preparing something greater. Perhaps you're in a desert season of your life, wondering if God has overlooked you. But remember, it was in the desert that Ishmael received the promise of a great nation. God can transform even your most challenging moments into opportunities to reveal His glory. Now, I want to challenge you to take action. Think of one area in your life where you need to trust God more. It could be a family issue, a professional challenge, or even something spiritual. Why not start with a heartfelt prayer? Or perhaps it's time to take a step toward reconciliation with someone. Small actions can create big changes. God is ready to work. You just need to make room. If this message resonated with you, don't keep it to yourself. Subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications for more content like this, and leave a like. Here you'll find more stories that inspire, challenge, and demonstrate God's power in the midst of our struggles. And look, more videos are appearing on your screen right now. Click on them and continue your journey of learning and growth. May God bless your life, and I'll see you next time.